The nurses screamed. It happened during my third year of teaching. The scream from the cafeteria still echoes in my mind. A young boy had taken a horrific fall, and by the time I reached him, thick, crimson blood was literally pouring down his leg, pooling onto the linoleum floor. I scooped him up and rushed him down the hall to the school nurse. Miss Smith, what happened inside that clinic was more terrifying than the injury itself. When I burst through the door, Miss Smith didn't even look up. She was casually scrolling on her phone. Miss Smith, he's bleeding heavily. I yelled, my hands covered in the boy's blood. Without breaking her gaze from the glowing screen, she muttered, it's minor. Boys need to learn to be tough. I couldn't believe my ears. I pleaded with her, my voice escalating to a shout, pointing at the literal pool of blood forming on her pristine floor. Still, she remained glued to her screen, hiding behind the same sickening excuse. Realizing she wouldn't lift a finger, a wave of disgust washed over me. I pushed past her, grabbed the medical supplies, swiftly cleaned the deep gash myself, and bandaged the boy's leg. After sending him back to class, I marched out, ignoring the ghost sitting behind the desk. That night, I sent a scathing, detailed email to the principal. No response. Total silence. Refusing to let it go, I bypassed the administration entirely and filed a formal complaint with the school board, alongside a report for criminal medical negligence. That was the loose thread that unraveled the nightmare. 3 days later, the local news shattered the community. Miss Smith was arrested in her home. But she wasn't alone. The principal was led out in handcuffs right beside her. As the investigation went public, the chilling truth came to light. Years ago, Miss Smith had refused to treat another student, a delay that resulted in that child's tragic death. She had successfully framed it as an unavoidable medical anomaly. Our principal had ignored dozens of complaints about her over the years, simply because he was too lazy to go through the bureaucratic process of hiring a new nurse. He had traded students' lives for his own convenience. The next morning at school, the atmosphere was thick. Parents, teachers, and crying students crowded my classroom, thanking me for stopping a monster. I merely told them I did what any decent human should do. Soon after, news broke that both Miss Smith and the former principal were denied bail. Yet, the internet showed its ugliest side. I began receiving anonymous hate messages claiming I was ruining a dedicated nurse's career over a boy who just needed to learn to bear pain. 6 months later, the gavel fell. The former principal was sentenced to 3 years in prison for child endangerment. Miss Smith, staring blankly ahead with the same cold eyes she had that day in the clinic, was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 15 years. People told me I saved the entire school. Justice was served. But as I watched the police escort them out of the courtroom in chains, I didn't feel victorious. A hollow emptiness settled deep in my chest. I just stared at the wooden benches, wishing someone had spoken up sooner before that first, forgotten student had to die.